Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. STOPSIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to STOPSIS. Hey, welcome back to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I am here with co-host Rachel Timothy. If you have not yet heard her full story, listen in to the Dreamcast episode. It is linked below, as well as read her book, OpenBlindEyes. On this podcast, we talk about not just the trauma she experienced, what life was like after the trauma and how it impacted her on a cellular level, her relationships, all that kind of stuff, but also the healing journey, because we don't want to stay stuck in the hard stuff. We know it's important to talk about them. And so we want to create a safe place for you to be brave and step into talking about your hard stuff too. But we don't want to stay there. We're moving on. We're rekindling our spark and kind of finding that life after trauma. And so in each episode, we work to do a little bit of both. So big thank you to those who have liked, commented, shared, left reviews on all of that podcasts and YouTube and all of the things. We so appreciate hearing from you. And we know that your feedback just helps other people find us that much easier. We have heard from several of you who have taken what you've learned here and have been able to use it within your community, whether it's with Girl Scouts or community groups. Really just being aware you've been able to connect with others and let them know that you are someone they can talk to. And that is priceless. Like, that is worth one episode. I mean, that's worth the whole thing, right? Because we know that it's not just that one girl that you're supporting, but the people that she's going to impact too. So thank you for listening and implementing. Please let us know what ideas and thoughts you have as we continue to find topics and that kind of thing. We do have a winner. I want to share. We have a winner for our Stop Suffering in Silence t-shirt. It is super beautiful. It has a butterfly that Rachel drew on the front with the words, "You are heard." And so we'll show you some in a few weeks when we both come wearing them, but we're giving them to the girls at the retreat, so they get first dibs. And then we will be offering them on our website in the next month as well. So big thank you to Sherry Johnson. You left a review, and we so appreciate that. And we will be sending you a Stop Sis t-shirt. So, all right, jumping into this episode. I feel like every week I'm like, this is going to be a tricky one. This is a tricky one. But it's important that we create space to talk about the tricky stuff, because that's why we're here. And so today we're talking about red flags that you can see as a parent with adults in your community, and red flags that you could see as a teenager, a young adult, a woman. I mean, certainly abuse happens to men as well, but we also know that oftentimes abusers prey on younger girls. And so we want to also speak to them. So Rachel, red flags. Tell me, my guess is that it's always easier to see after the fact. But did your perpetrators have things in common?
Yeah, so all of them actually had jobs that were very prominent in the community, which that's not a red flag, but that is something that they all had in common. And so it already is tricking your brain to thinking, because we were all brought up with stranger danger. So when you start to confuse your brain with you see somebody who's supposed to be safe who is doing something unsafe, you begin to be confused. I think for my particular abuser growing up, one of the red flags that I feel like would have been obvious to people around me was he spent alone time with particular girls, a special time. He gave them special nicknames. He wasn't just, he didn't have like a boy up at his desk all the time. It was always a young girl, and he made it. I mean, it was right out in the open. Because everybody else was groomed around him, they all thought he was safe, and so it didn't matter, I guess. They didn't see the danger in it. But there is no reason for a grown man to want to be alone with a little girl, especially as much as we were.
Well, and I know you weren't the only one that he groomed. It sounds like he chose a different girl each year. And so every year or so, there would be a new special one that he would pull out of class, that he would spend time with. And you would expect that the other teachers would have seen that too.
And I believe they did. Some have said something to me after the fact, now that I've come forward. Some won't even go there. It's like they don't want to admit that, yes, I saw this and I screwed up. I mean, that's a gut check. But I know they saw it. They had to have seen it. He was pulling me out of class all the time. He was another teacher and a coach in my grade school. And so they had to have seen it, but they justified it because of his behavior towards them.
Yeah. And I think we justify so many things that make us uncomfortable, so many things that we don't really like, but we do anyway, or we see and we may see a red flag, but then we justify it in our head. We'll say, oh, well, I'm sure it's fine. The principal would do something, or I'm sure it's fine. Her parents would say something. And we do, when really the listening to that gut instinct is something we all probably need to practice more than we do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just recently, I feel I was tricked by another perpetrator, and I justified every single red flag because he worked for a trafficking organization. Like, surely they know who to choose to work with them. And so I would just justify it. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I just don't know what really people are supposed to act like. I put the blame back on me, and I teach on grooming. I teach on red flags, and I missed it again. I justified it.
Well, and I wouldn't say you totally missed it, because you did see it.
Okay, yes.
Eventually you left. I mean, you
Yes.
didn't stay forever. You did see it and you did leave, but it did take a minute. It wasn't super obvious. And I think that's the tricky part with red flags, is that you may see something and then you go, is that what I just saw?
Mhm.
Maybe I'm wrong. Because we want to think the best of people.
Yep.
So the first one is alone time.
Yeah, and that isolation. So let me compare a little bit, because as I've talked before about Granny in my life, she was a huge support to me. She came to me and or I came to her and I shared my story, and she began to pour into me and care for me. Okay, but then you also had my perpetrator when I was a kid, who seemingly was caring for me and helping me, because that's what perpetrators like to do. They like to fill a need in somebody's life. But the difference was Granny didn't want to isolate me. She wanted me to have a community of support. She pushed me to talk to other people. Um, she encouraged me she didn't want to be my only safe place. She wanted other people. She knew that was good for me. Whereas my perpetrator, he wanted our time to be special. He wanted to isolate me from trusting other people and only to trust and listen to him. So they both act like they're filling a need. One really is, but the other one was actually filling their own need for hurting a child.
I
Does that
think
make
that
sense?
isolation piece is really important because again, it can be subtle. So as an adult, I mean, as a kid, I don't know that you really cannot recognize red flags. You're just not really developed enough to be able to, you can know things are weird, but you're not necessarily strong enough to leave or whatever the case may be. Parents are the ones that recognize red flags. So if anybody wants to take your child alone, even if it's after school for a special project, even if it is, they're really smart and I want to help them with math, or they need help with reading, I want to tutor them alone. All of that stuff should be done in public. You can show up at any time. And hopefully the idea would be that there's a group, that there's more than one, that they're in a conference room that's seen by the school. All of that are just things that as a parent, we need to be thoughtful and mindful of. Show up early, stay the whole time, the first, whatever you need to do in order to ensure that it's okay. But when you get to be, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and as an adult who cares for kids, I don't want to make them be alone. Like, that's going to make the kid have weird feelings and anxiety. And I
Yeah.
mean, with the way our world is today, for my own safety, I wouldn't want to be alone with the kid in case the kid said something.
Yeah.
So a person who has good intentions doesn't want to be alone with your kid.
Right. Right. No, that's really true. And they would be fine with meeting in the community lobby and that kind of thing because that's what they would prefer themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. And then as you become an adult, the isolation, I mean, my guess is it could happen as well, and you'll have to tell me your story, but sometimes the isolation is a subtle jab. Like it starts to bring in mistrust to other people. So for example, it could be like, are your parents always that rude to you? Or, is your husband always late at coming home from work? Or I saw your husband out at Starbucks, like starting to really jab and get in between these other relationships that you have, causing you to not trust the world, not trust that other relationship. And now they're the only one you can trust.
Yeah, that's exactly what that guy did here recently, trying to make me believe that my husband was not good. And he pulled something that wasn't true and tried to put a wedge between me and my husband. And that should have been enough of a red flag. But here I thought, well, maybe he just cares that much that he's willing to even say the hard things. I don't know. Like I justified it, and shame on me for doing that. But they make it seem like they care so much that you believe their words, and that's what he did. And luckily my eyes were opened, and I was able to shut down everything that he was trying to disrupt in my life. I mean, he wanted me to uh move in with him and just leave everybody else. And I mean, like, it's not okay. And that should have been enough of a red flag. But when you put everything together and you think how much he helped me, how much he helped my family, all that he had done for us, it's like I shouldn't see that red flag as a real red flag because of all that he's done for my life.
Well, isn't that interesting though, that there's strings attached?
Mm.
So then it feels like he's done all this for me. So anything that I don't appreciate, or, you overlook it because now I owe him, kind of.
Yep, exactly.
So that could be a red flag as well, feeling like you owe things to someone.
Hmm. And oftentimes perpetrators will do that. If you have an adult who is giving your child special gifts, that's a red flag. Okay, that's not normal.
And again, we were listening to, in preparation to this, we have other podcasts that we listen to, and we're just chit-chatting and talking about some stuff. And we thought most people are exhausted after work They have their own things to take care of. They're not interested or able to emotionally, like, even have the brain space to say, let me come babysit for you. Let me come tutor your child. Why don't you bring them here and I'll watch them for you? And so the parents are often groomed because they're like, I am so tired. Thank you. But if you really take a step back and think, no 50-some-year-old man really wants to spend his Saturday mornings tutoring, a third grader. Let's just really see what's going on here.
Yep, exactly. And go with your gut. Oftentimes we quiet our gut, and our gut is screaming no, and that's the Holy Spirit. Even if you cannot see anything visually that is a red flag, if your gut goes off and says, whoa, step back, that's a red flag. Listen to it.
Yeah. I have a friend, I was sharing with them what we were talking about, and she said, you know what? I had a gut feeling for her brother-in-law, and she never allowed the kids to spend the night there because there was something off. And she said she never knew because her sister never said anything, tried to protect him, made him look good. But years later, when they finally separated, she found out that he's been abusive to her.
Ugh.
And so she's so glad that she listened to herself.
Yeah, exactly.
And really controlled any of the situation, meaning like the cousins could come to her house, but she didn't send her kids there.
Yeah, and you're not labeling somebody a wolf or a perpetrator based on your gut feeling. You're just simply saying, there's a red flag. I'm going to listen to it and change my behaviors, change who my kids spend time with based on that red flag. And that's okay. That's smart.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really setting boundaries. Healthy boundaries for you, healthy boundaries for your family, for your kids. So one is isolation. One is maybe driving a wedge between other important relationships. Now, I know that can often happen in domestic violence situations. That can happen in, I've heard stories of even teenagers dating. They get really possessive and they start saying, I'm the only one who can take care of you, all of that. Did that happen as a child? Did your perpetrators really talk much about other people in your life, or did they just make you feel so special that bond was strong?
The special stuff, the special feeling started it, shame followed it. So first they made me feel special to where I let down my guard and I trusted them. And then once the abuse started happening, shame followed it to where I felt like it was my fault. And speaking out just wasn't even possible. It didn't feel possible.
Okay. A truck is coming, so we'll probably hear my dogs, but I'll ask a question and then
Another thing, I can talk while you're on mute. Another thing is control. They want to control what you do, where you go, how you think. They literally will reprogram the way that you view yourself, the way that you view your family, your environment. They will try to control the people around you and manipulate situations, manipulate feelings. It is seriously a mastermind type mentality with what these perpetrators do. They will control an entire school, for example. I mean, that's how it was for me. But I don't know, when you look at somebody and you see how much control they have over people, that is a red flag, in my opinion. Your dogs are still barking. Okay, let me go to my list. Be mindful of if they give your child a pet name. I think I mentioned that earlier, but when I think of like grown men who are safe in my life, they aren't giving cute little nicknames to other kids in the community or whatever. That's a red flag. They will try to fill a need in your child's life. So if it's your youth group leader, let's say you have a youth group leader who is all of a sudden wanting to do extra special things in your child's life because they're missing out. Maybe they think your child's missing out on having a dad figure, or whatever. And oftentimes we want to believe the good in people, and we want to believe that they are healthy people who just want to pour into a kid, that Jesus is just working through them. Well, Jesus can work through them in a group setting. And don't don't be fooled by somebody being extra nice to your child, or saying, well, your child has a special gift, your child is extra good at sports or whatever. Don't don't fall for those types of manipulation and tricks, because typically that is what perpetrators will use to get alone time with your kid.
All right, the truck's gone, but we'll see. We'll see how it
I don't
goes.
even know what all I said.
I'm like, oh, geesh. Okay. The other one that I was thinking about is so again, I'm thinking of domestic violence or abusive adult situations, as well as the manipulation that happens as a child. But the idea of bringing up a concern and then being shut down, meaning you're overreacting, any sort of like, I don't approve of this, I don't like this isn't, like, take me home, I don't, then any sort of concern that's brought up is immediately shut down and not listened to. Did you experience that?
Yeah, and there would be the gaslighting and that sort of thing to make you question their intentions. There would be times when the most awful thing would be done to me by my abuser, and then he would follow it up with, "I am so sorry. Like, that is not who I am. I made a mistake. I want to be better. Will you help me be better?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah." Like, it's those mind games. Another thing that my abuser did that was a red flag to me is he would be all about me for a while and then not have anything to do with me for like a month straight, not even look at me, talk to me. I mean, was actually rude to me. And those mind games of up and down roller coasters with our emotions, that's not normal behavior.
Right. And then another one I had on my list was playing the victim themselves.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So not taking any responsibility, and even, of course, it sounds like the blaming you, shaming
Mhm.
you. So how did your perpetrator take the victim role?
Well, there would be times when he would say he was caught up in this ring and he didn't know how to get out, except for he needed to, pay a certain amount of money, or he really did want to be a good Christian. This was just a mistake that is following him everywhere. And he doesn't, that sort of thing. Like, it, he couldn't get out of this ring, supposedly. And that's bull.
Right. Okay. So then again, you're just, I mean, as a child, you really have no control at all, but it's, as an adult, you can think of the things of the gaslighting, or the not taking responsibility, or saying, this is just who I am, this is the way I am, I can't change, I'm the victim, I don't want to be this way, but there's nothing I can do. So no responsibility for them getting better. I know I hear this in domestic violence situations where it's like, the wife or the victim is supposed to change,
Hmm.
because the victim is the one who's making me act out
Right.
or be angry or XYZ. And there's no responsibility to the perpetrator as being like, I need to grow or change or figure this out. It's always on the other person.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So what does somebody do if they start noticing these red flags? Like, what are some things that a parent could do, or a college student could do, if they get in a relationship with someone who's not healthy? Now, I do want to preface this, because there is a spectrum, right, of not healthiness, of somebody who is like, has a conscience and wants to grow. And then we have the wolf, as you call, in sheep's clothing, who doesn't even quite know they're doing anything wrong, meaning like it's not a mistake, and they're
Yeah.
not trying to
It's
keep,
intentional.
it's intentional. And you think of, I often would think, well, how can they keep these lies? Like, must not sleep at night. Like, how are they able to sleep at night when they have all these lies, or when they're being harmful? but I don't think I think they can sleep at night, because I'm now learning that they don't think that what they're doing is wrong or bad, that they're just not, like, these are not normal people. These are really
Right.
sick and twisted and evil people, which is why we can't make sense of it. And when we try to make sense of it, it doesn't work. It doesn't fit.
And right. And what I wish so badly is that you could see the evil plain as day. But most of the time, it is hidden under an extremely nice exterior. You know, like you hear so much of these perpetrators that are coming to churches. And that's on purpose, because as Christians, we have a tendency to say, oh, you have the Christian label, you must be safe. Here's my kid. Here, do devotions with my kid, spend time with my kid, because you are an amazing man that I want my kid to be like. But these perpetrators know that by going to our churches and by acting like a sheep, then these parents will willingly give their kids over. And then when a kid starts to say, like, hey, they touched me inappropriately, or I don't feel comfortable around this man, the parents are going to believe the grown man because all they've seen is a sheep. So let me shout from the mountaintops: a wolf will act like a sheep to everybody except for the child they're hurting. And then that's the child who sees the real person, the real wolf. Listen to kids, listen to anybody's accusations. It's not fun to come forward and say that a member of my church has hurt me. In fact, it's terrifying. Listen to them. Okay. It's not just to get somebody hurt. Typically, they saw the wolf when you were only shown the sheep.
We have there's a like a son and mom duo that we may bring on the show at some point, and their father, the husband and father, was a perpetrator, in an active perpetrator, well liked by everyone in the community, but is now in prison. And they've asked him questions. And I think it's so, again, fascinating to get into the mind of a perpetrator, because as a psychologist, I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, how does this even happen? But they made it sound like he still is like, yeah, no big deal. I didn't do anything wrong. And anytime he would say he was sorry, it was really more of a sorry you found out, not a sorry I did something wrong. So it's truly, a wolf in this sense is not someone who's wanting to change, is not somebody who's making a mistake, is somebody who like that's kind of who they are. And so
and I also feel like, so let's say you're hiring somebody and you're trying to figure out if they are a safe person or not, a wolf or not. Background checks are not enough. I think 100% of my perpetrators have clean background checks. So don't base who is safe and who is not safe based on their past record. Oftentimes, when a perpetrator is finally caught that first time, they had done it 100 times prior to that. So just be mindful that just because they were caught this time doesn't mean, oops, they made this silly mistake, I'm going to show grace and forgiveness and move forward, let them continue to be a part of my life. Know that it probably happened 100 times prior to that. You're just now seeing it. And so, I mean, that's a red flag. It's an obvious red flag.
And what we found too is that if a perpetrator gets caught, they sometimes will move and just start over. And so if nothing is actually done in the current town, like if charges aren't pressed or something isn't done, then that perpetrator can just easily go to another church, another community, and start the process over again.
Exactly. Yep. And there's no way really for you to know different.
So what should you do if you start seeing these signs? And we can talk to the parent, and then we can also talk to the girl, to the woman who is starting to date or has a relation, has guys or men, whoever, starting to give them attention.
Yeah, I think boundaries. See the red flags and then start to put up boundaries for your kids. If you have any red flags for a grown man, woman, whatever, your kids should not be around them. And you don't have to explain to them why. Those are your kids that you are keeping safe. I think another thing to be mindful of is the other kids that you bring into your house, your kids as friends, and being mindful of their parents and being mindful of, what we call like the tickle time, be mindful of parents who are handsy and hands on, and then give your child a voice as well to say, people don't touch you like that. That's not okay. So you empower your kid, but you also put boundaries up, safe boundaries to keep them safe around those who have shown red flags.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, you guys. We are taught as to respect authority. We are taught to trust other adults. And especially as we're growing and, everyone's older than us, we're taught to do that. But really what we should be taught is to trust ourselves. And so teaching our kids how to trust themselves, helping them to gain a clear picture of what it is they want in a relationship, what type of man they want, what type of relationship they want, and then saying no to things they don't want. Now, I think of the teenagers in my world who at some point will probably just take any attention from anyone they get, because we are relationship starved people oftentimes, when we know that loneliness is actually more detrimental to our health than stress. Yet there's so much stress, self-care, things going on. Go get a bath, or go for a walk, or get your nails done. I mean, all of those are helpful, sure. But at the end of the day, people really crave relationships. And so we have to be careful with that, because perpetrators know that, and they're kind of coming in to support that need that we have. But when really it's a need that they have.
Yes.
And so empowering our girls to know who they are, to have a voice, to be able to say, this is what I want out of a relationship. And if it's not this, then the answer is no. I think is key, because what happens is we're raising a generation of kids who don't even know themselves, let alone be able to set boundaries with someone who's inappropriate.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic advice.
So what is something that is not helpful? I'm sure you've had people in your life that want to be helpful, but it actually does more damage. So they might not necessarily be a perpetrator, but they're not aiding the situation, I guess.
Well, as you were talking, a thought came to my mind. I've had several people who were abused within their family, and they will come forward, and other people in the family will say, "Well, why didn't he abuse me then? Like, how can that be true? Because he didn't abuse me. Why did he just abuse you? Are you special?" That does not help. But I cannot even tell you how many times I have heard people say, well, they didn't abuse my sister, and so then nobody believes me. Um, I've also it's really, really difficult when the abuse happens within the family. And talking about, like, I'm totally going off of different track. I'm sorry. But talking about abuse within your family, nobody wants to believe that there's any chance somebody within their family is causing abuse. And I get that. And if we change our perspective a little bit to think, if somebody was in our family causing abuse, we want to help them as much as we want to help the victim, because this is not okay for either side of it. But oftentimes, these perpetrators within a family will have control over the entire family. Control is huge for a perpetrator. And so these kids, they're now adults, but as kids, maybe it's their older brother, or it's an uncle or a father. They have so much control over the mother that the child has nobody to go to explain what's going on. And so relationships like that, where you see control, and it could be that you're seeing it again in your kids' friends' family. Be mindful of when you see somebody with extreme control over their family. That's a red flag for your kids, but also there's probably a child in that home that needs help.
Yeah. Yeah, because you think of the grooming and gaslighting, that's not just happening with the victim, that's happening with the whole family. So you think,
Yeah.
If a father or an uncle or somebody is hurting a child, the mom is probably being gaslit and has no voice and feeling small. And even if she has brought up concerns, they're being shut down immediately. And so she's justifying things that she's seeing that
Yes.
don't make sense. But because she's been brainwashed herself, everything gets swept under the rug.
Yep.
And we know, especially when abuse happens in families, everybody could know about it and nobody talks about it.
Yep. But
And
honestly, that kid, I guarantee you, is just waiting for a chance to use their voice and share their story. Be that safe place for a kid to be able to just spill their guts. And I guarantee after they spill their guts, they'll say, no, please don't tell anybody. Please, please, please. But it's like our instinct. We know the best thing for us is to get it out. And oftentimes we then are met with an adult who says, that can't be true. You're lying. And that's one of the number one things you should never say to somebody who is exposing abuse.
well, and I think at the end of the day, even if you are, um, even if somebody comes to you and you're shocked by this news and you don't believe it and you don't understand it, why don't we start with, I am so sorry.
Yes.
And
Yes.
let's investigate. Let's figure this out. Like, we're not just going to say, oh, I mean, imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine my children saying something like that to me and me saying, oh, whatever. Like, we're gonna go figure this out. Something is going on.
Exactly. And sometimes our first instinct is to protect ourselves as an adult and be like, no, but I was there all the time. There's no way that that could have happened. You just start to throw in these reasonings of, no, I protected you. I had to have. But that's detrimental to the child who's trying to use their voice and explain what really did happen.
Yeah. One of the best, like, it's just really a skill that I think we all can benefit from, especially if things have been shoved under the rug for years and years and years and years, is the radical honesty. Radical honesty, just being absolutely honest with yourself and then others, is really what can bring this, like, out of alignment, like this tension within ourselves, back together. Like you mentioned a few episodes ago, that foundation can be secure again when, and being radically honest is a huge part of that, whether it's with a counselor or whether it's with a family member. But honestly, usually it's with yourself.
That's true. But when you're a kid and you feel like you are going to be radically honest and expose an adult, when you've never seen an adult actually get in trouble, you've only seen kids get in trouble, not to mention the threats and everything. That radical honesty is dying to come out, but they need a place to do that. They need a safe place and somebody to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what not to do? What not to do is to not believe. What not to do is to, again, undermine or create division. You must have misunderstood him when they said that. You must have, I think at the end of the day, like, my life purpose, I feel like, and what I see as being key in successful, healthy people is to know who they are and to listen to themselves and to honor them. Because I feel like the Holy Spirit is speaking to us all of the time. And if we get disconnected and we just, again, we're living out of this space where we're trying to get everybody else's approval, we're never going to be happy. And that radical honesty. And so when I say, what is one thing you can do to be helpful to somebody? My first instinct is to ask them questions and allow them to share, but then also ask them, like, what do you want? What is safe for you? What do you, because I think, again, I want them, and I'm thinking of adults, but also children. I want them to be able to trust their own gut and trust their own instinct, which means giving them a space to discover it. I don't know. What do you think?
No, yes, exactly. I know, like, Granny, for example, has poured into me for years, and she has fought for me to trust my own instinct, my own gut, the Holy Spirit within me, she wanted me to have confidence in myself, not depend on her for, is this okay? Is this right? Do I trust this? She didn't want that dependence. That was not fun for her. But a perpetrator's the opposite. They don't want you to trust your instincts or listen to your gut or listen to the Holy Spirit. They're going to play those mind games to where you start to think, am I seeing this right? Am I feeling this right? And then you go to them and say, what do you think I should do? They want that control. So that's another huge difference between a safe person who cares versus somebody who is feeling their own need of wanting to control you, and typically for a purpose then of abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. A healthy person is going to ask you questions, is going to allow you to discover, because
Yes.
again, I could tell you, go for a walk, it'll make you feel better. But if you say, I think I should go for a walk, it'll make me feel better, that's you building your own strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to help you get in touch with yourself and trust yourself, your own gut. And they're going to also work to build within community.
Exactly. They want you to, a good person wants you to reach out and have lots of friends, lots of support, an army around you. Another red flag, Granny always wanted me to trust who I am in God and how God views me, and to listen to God, listen to the Holy Spirit. Whereas a perpetrator is going to make you question God, question how God views you, question your worth and who God is. I was being built up by Granny, but my perpetrator was destroying my worth.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think knowing these red flags, whether you're a parent and you can start to recognize, oh, one other thing I thought of, sorry, I'm like, keep trying to transition. Then I'm like, wait, one more. So I was chatting with some friends last night, and one was abused by her uncle, and she didn't remember for years and years and years and years. However, when she looks back, she now sees these red flags. One of them was that the uncle's daughter played inappropriately with her. So her cousin played inappropriately, would lock the door, would play house, would try to kiss her, things like that. That, as a 4, 5, 6-year-old, like what is that? And so another thing to think about is your friends or family, like the other kids, how are they playing?
Yep.
And that could be a red flag that something else is happening in the family.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we want to go along that path, just know that if there is a drastic change in a child, there's a reason. And it's not a behavior like, oh, we need to punish them. Get to the root of what's going on. There's a reason they're having suicidal thoughts. There's a reason they're cutting. There's a reason they're isolating all of a sudden. And just try to get them to voice and talk, because it's not for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I think when we have eyes wide open, we can catch it before it gets too far gone. But at the end of the day, being that safe place for people to share and be radically honest is sometimes one of the only things we can do, and one of the best things that we can do.
Yes, agreed.
All right. So you found a safe person in Granny who created the space for you to be brave and start sharing, and just like unloading everything that you had experienced. I want to end with like one healing tip, one thing that you did on your journey that you would say to somebody who is either noticing red flags in their own relationships or within their children. What's one thing along one healing thing along the journey that you've done that would be helpful?
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, Granny was my safe place, but she created in me a brave space. I love that. And in doing so, she gave me the confidence to fight for myself. I have studied, and I believe it is in The Body Keeps the Score, but I can't remember for sure if it was that book or a different book. But it talks about the difference between having somebody else rescue you and having you rescue yourself. So if you are in a toxic relationship, or just in the midst of it in some way, shape, or form, it is better for you to pull yourself out than to have somebody come in and rescue you and sweep you away. Take the boldness that I am speaking to you right now and know that you are not wrong in the red flags that you feel in the confusion. A healthy relationship is not confusing. It's not manipulating. You don't question yourself. You don't question those around you. You don't completely depend on one person. You're not wrong in how you feel. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to stand up and be bold and walk away. Get help, get support around you for sure. But you being the one to end that relationship is going to empower you for the future. And when you read about the brain, and it was talking about things like Hurricane Katrina and the ones who were rescued by somebody else on a raft and carried out versus the ones who got themselves out, there was a difference in the trauma impact afterwards. The ones who rescued themselves were not as traumatized because they took control. And that's what the abuser doesn't want you to have, is control. And that's what you should have.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful tip. And you're right. Listen to yourself.
Yes.
Take bold action, reach out to other people in your life who are healthy, because, and I think confusion could be the red flag of,
Yes.
if
Yes.
there's confusion, it's not of God, period. End of story. You don't even have to figure it out.
Amen.
Run
Yes.
away fast.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. We were just chatting before we pressed record, but we've had 4 people within the 90-day U-turn program leave a toxic relationship. And it may sound, it's silly to cheer about something like that, but it's not when you know that the reason they did it is because they felt inner strength.
Exactly.
And that is priceless. And that's going to take you not only out of this toxic relationship, but into a healthy one.
Yeah, it's going to catapult you forward to gain more confidence and more strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are headed to taking the girls on a retreat this next week. So we're going to record one more before we go. But then after that, we're going to get to tell you all about it, what we did. And we may even do some interviews with some of the girls while we're there, so you can hear directly from them. But that is what your donation to Stop Suffering in Silence does. It provides a community of people who get it, to those who have had extreme trauma or trafficking in their past. So not only is it a place where we can be brave and talk about the hard things because we get it, but we're also on this healing journey together. So thank you so much to those who have donated to sponsoring a survivor. It is because of your donations that we get to go and we get to take these girls. And we're going horseback riding, we're going on a hike, we've got all these fun activities planned, and this will be a new experience for them. They've most of them have not even left for the weekend before. So to have an opportunity like this is so priceless, and we just want to thank you for your support. If you have anybody in your life that has gone through extreme abuse or has what's called the chronic PTSD symptoms, reach out to us. We're going to be putting together another round of the survivor cohort of 90-day U-turn in the next couple of months here, and we would love to connect with you. And if that's you, connect with us. If you've got a referral, pass out our information and allow them to connect with us as well, so we can start the process. A lot of fun things are brewing, not just with the 90-day U-turn, but we also have some fundraisers we're planning. We're also thinking of some collaboration books that survivors can share a story. So we'd love to connect with anybody whether it's you or someone else who is hurting. So reach out. We are here, and we just want to say thank you for your support. All right, I'll end with an I declare. I declare God's dream for my life is coming to pass. It is not stopped by people, disappointments, or adversities. God has solutions to every problem I face already lined up. The right people and the right breaks are here. I am fulfilling my destiny. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome, awesome week, you guys. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email OpenBlindEyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to STOPSIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.